Hi, this is Thomas the Hermit. I am a hermit, a man of prayer. I have a YouTube channel and a Facebook group called the Humble Holy Laity. I talk about prayer. I talk about things that are concerning me in the Catholic Church. Today we are talking about the four waters of Teresa. Now, any of you who have read the life of Teresa of Jesus know about the four waters. And so you're probably excited. Those of you who don't know, Teresa talks about four ways of watering the garden. There are degrees and levels of prayer, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Teresa of Avila, the four waters. So this is from the work of Teresa of Avila, The Life of Teresa of Jesus. That is her autobiography, and this is on the four waters. Now, some say that this was interjected after it was written, and that kind of makes sense. But anyways, let's look at this. I'm going to read it to you, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. A beginner must look upon himself as making a garden, wherein our Lord may take his delight, but in a soil unfruitful and abounding in weeds. His Majesty roots up the weeds and has to plant good herb. Let us then take for granted that this is already done when a soul is determined to give itself to prayer and has begun the practice of it. We have then, as good gardeners, by the help of God, to see that the plants grow, to water them carefully, and they may not die, but produce blossoms which shall send forth much fragrance, refreshing to our Lord, so that he may come often for his pleasure into this garden and delight himself in the midst of these virtues. Let us now see how this garden is to be watered, that we may understand what we have to do, how much trouble it will cost us, whether the gain be greater than the trouble, or how long a time it will take us. It seems to me that the garden may be watered in four ways: by water taken out of a well, which is very laborious, or with water raised by means of an engine and buckets drawn by a windlass. I've drawn it this way sometimes. It is a less troublesome way than the first and gives more water. Or by a stream or brook, whereby the garden is watered in a much better way, for the soil is more thoroughly saturated, and there is no necessity to water it so often. And the labor of the gardener is much less, or by showers of rain, when our Lord himself waters it without labor on our part. And this way is incomparably better than all the others of which I have spoken. Now then, for the application of these four ways of irrigation by which the garden is to be maintained. For without water it must fail. The comparison is to my purpose, and it seems to me that by the help of it I shall be able to explain in some measure the 4 degrees of prayer to which our Lord of his goodness has occasionally raised my soul. May he graciously grant that I may so speak as to be of some service to one of those who has commanded me to write. Okay, so Teresa lists 4 ways of watering the garden. She likes to imagine herself as her soul being a garden, where the Lord will come when she is filled with virtues and delight himself to be in his garden. So, she says there are 4 ways that that garden can be watered. Of course, she's talking about God's grace, okay? And the first water that she lists is a bucket drawn out of a well. Now, of course, we don't really draw water out of buckets anymore. We just go to the kitchen and we turn the faucet on and there's water. But if you've ever drawn water, it's very heavy, water's very heavy, and it's very laborious. Teresa says it's laborious to draw water with the bucket to water the garden, okay? That is the first metaphor for the first level of prayer. The second metaphor, the second level of prayer, is to be drawn by a mechanical device, like a like a series of buckets that are connected to a mechanical device that goes down and picks up the water, and all you have to do is crank it, okay, or something like that. Anyways, she says that it is a much easier way to get the water, and more water goes into the garden. The third way that she lists is from a brook or a stream, basically direct irrigation into the garden. And she says that that saturates the soil even deeper. And finally, the last one is rain, where it just comes from the sky and waters the garden. And she says that is the best way of all to water the garden. Now, I have always delighted in the four waters, okay? Because they tell us that there are degrees, that there are levels that we can reach. That we, if we apply ourselves and with God's grace, can arrive at a deep, profound relationship with God. It is the most awesome part of the diary, of her work, The Life of Teresa of Jesus. It is the telltale sign of Teresa. Teresa inspires us. We think maybe we can do what she did. We have a feeling, she makes us feel like maybe we can arrive at a deep intimacy with God, that we can experience rapture or ecstasy, that we ourselves might be able to penetrate the prayer of quiet. Now what I'm going to do, because that is basically the introduction, is I'm going to break down the four waters in four more segments. This is an intro. And I hope that you thirst for that water. I hope that you thirst with all your being for that water. When I read Teresa, I thirst for that water. I thirst for my garden to be watered by that divine heavenly rain. Of course, that's the high spot. And I'm not there yet, but Teresa makes me think that it's possible. It's Thomas the Hermit. Say a prayer for me. I am praying for you, and I'll talk to you later.